Airports. You've probably experienced being in one at least once in your life. Everyone you pass is going somewhere different. These people around you are living completely different lives, and they just so happen to be in the same place at the same time as you. You pass these people, not batting an eye. When you do look over to those passing by, it's just that. They're just passing you. Sometimes you make eye contact with people, quickly darting your eyes back in front of you as to not appear rude. We can't help it as humans. We're curious creatures and want to know what's going on around us. I'm not here to talk about awkward eye contact with you. I want to talk about the eye contact that lasts longer than half a second. I want to discuss the concept of the airport lover. The airport lover concept is fairly simple. Two people going completely different places lock eyes for 2 to 3 seconds. They are completely infatuated by each other's appearance and demeanor, and it's as if time were standing still between the two of them. They both picture a lifetime with each other, thinking that they would be an escape from the life they are so accustomed to. Not a word is spoken between the two. All there is eye contact and desire for each other. Then, they pass. The two never see each other again. This concept isn't anything new. Airport crushes have always been a thing in society, and the concept has even been adapted into different forms of media, a prime example being the Zac Brown band's As She's Walking Away, and how it talks about falling in love with a girl at a bar and not having the courage to talk to her, and she walks away, never knowing the man's feelings. The idea of two strangers falling in love at first sight is romantic, but when I think about strangers, I think of them as just that. Strangers, just two random people that we know nothing about, no connection to the reader or viewer in any capacity except for the universal feeling of falling in love. Now, I want to show you how this concept can be turned into a full-fledged story. Let's add some personality and context to our strangers and watch our narrative blossom into something more than just a simple concept. Let's meet our female stranger. We'll call her Emily, M for short. M is 26 years old and lives in a low-end apartment complex with her husband of 4 years. She's a t-shirt, shorts, and flip-flop kind of girl with tattoos she sometimes forgets she has. She's a fan of the simple things in life, music, nature and the outdoors, and finding peace within the life she has been provided. Her marriage is anything but peaceful though. Her husband's drug addiction has caused countless fights. They struggle paying rent on time because her husband spends their money on drugs and other non-essentials. Emma's happier at her retail job than she is coming home to her jobless husband. There are nights she sleeps in her car just to avoid fights with him. After years of false promises and lies, she's had enough. She calls her mom, telling her she can't do it anymore. She wants to come home. Her mom agrees that the marriage is anything but healthy and says she has an open room for her to stay in Seattle. In the middle of the night, she packs her things, writes a note to her husband to wake up to, and leaves her ring on the kitchen counter. She orders an Uber to the airport, and even though she's teary-eyed, has no problem talking to the driver about her dilemma. Arriving at the airport about 20 minutes later, she collects herself, apologizes that she's not able to tip the driver as money is tight right now, but she's grateful for the talk. He assures her it's no problem and drives off as she goes to check in her bags and get through security. She stops for a coffee in the airport, tired and drained from the willpower it took to leave, hoping some espresso will get her up and moving. She chugs it and heads towards her gate at the end of the airport. Now we've got a character we can relate to. Struggles, hopes, and a desire to be happy. How much more human can a person get? The ability to relate to a character within a story is, to me, the most important aspect of a story. We want a character we can feel for, a character we can relate to in some capacity, even if their situation isn't the same as ours. We have a character we can relate to, but how do we follow this up with a similar character, but also vastly different in nature? Let's meet our male stranger, Austin, a 28-year-old businessman who's got everything a man could want. He's charming, excelled in his scholars, and came from a wealthy family who pushed him to get into business, as it's what his father and his father before him did to bring in the wealth they have inherited over the years. He wears a suit every day and a Rolex he got from his father on Christmas. He has no time to sit around and be friendly. He has calls to make and meetings to attend. If it's not business, he doesn't have time for it. While he has this hard-headed and strictly work-based personality, it's not what he wants. He's upset he doesn't have time to be with his friends, always stressing about the little things and making sure he doesn't risk ruining the reputation he's built for himself over the past few years. He doesn't want to be perfect. He wants to live. He wants to feel what it's like to lose and grieve over the little things. He's got dreams, but his father would all but disown him if he were to ever act upon these so-called fantasies of his. One day at work, he is called into his manager's office for a meeting. He is told that he is being promoted to run his own branch of the business as a general manager down in Miami. He spends the next 2 weeks finding a luxury studio apartment for him to live in Miami, a small price to pay for the loads of wealth that will soon be in the palms of his hands. Finally, the day arrives. His parents drive him to the airport around midnight, as the usual trip to Miami takes around 5 hours, including layovers. They say their goodbyes, telling him they couldn't be prouder of him. He fakes a smile and thanks them for believing in him. A couple hugs later, he makes his way to check in his bags and makes his way towards security. He stops at a bar within the airport, ordering himself a Moscow Mule to chug down before he embarks on this new life he doesn't even want to live. He puts his head down in exhaustion, thinking that this is the life he was dealt. Suits, money, strictly business. Even with all this, he remains unhappy. He swigs it back, sets his glass down, picks up his bags, and heads towards the gate at the end of the airport. A character most of us have no relation to, but feel for. Most of us will never feel what it's like to be rich and to have it all. It's easy to question why anyone would want to leave a life of luxury behind. I like to think of Austin as growing up wanting to be a kid who played on the playground and never getting the chance to. He was never allowed to get his hands dirty and always had to dress and act a certain way. He never got a choice to live the way he wanted to. A life of perfection isn't always perfect to those who never asked for it. So, we've got our characters in the same place at the same time. Let me show you just how beautiful falling in love at first sight can truly be. Em keeps her head low, avoiding eye contact with anyone to avoid being asked if she's okay. The last thing she needs right now is unwanted attention. She looks up to continue making her way towards her gate and survey her surroundings, making sure she didn't miss her gate by accident. Then, she sees him, a man in a suit walking by, staring right back at her. His mouth barely hung open and his eyes fixated on nothing but hers. She's taken back by it, but finds comfort in his gaze. She's intrigued. He's overwhelmingly handsome, out of her league handsome, if she says so herself. She thinks about how she looks, feeling almost embarrassed that she's dressed in short shorts and a baggy shirt in his presence. Nonetheless, he's staring at her. She thinks about how nice his life must be, how he gets to look this good every day, and she has to settle for a good day every once in a while. Oh, the life she could have with this man. She knows their hardworking personalities would go hand in hand. She'd be with someone who helps pay the bills and helps take care of each other in times of need. The way she's looking at him right now is the way she'd stare at him for the rest of her life, in awe of the full man he is. She thinks she's crazy for falling for a man she just laid eyes upon, but she can't help it. The world that was so cruel to her seemed like a completely different reality when staring at this man. The way he's looking at her in this moment in time is a way she's never been looked at before. "Please," she whispers in her head, "take me away." Austin is awestruck. Walking towards his gate, he laid eyes upon a girl. To him, though, she was more than just a girl. She had this aura around her that could be felt hundreds of feet away. He locks eyes with her. Her eyes, a light blue, comparable to that of the Bahama waters. He could almost see waves crashing down within her eyes. Those weren't waves, he thought. She had been crying. He looks at what she's wearing. A baggy t-shirt, short shorts, and flip-flops. Her style matches the butterfly tattoo on her forearm, and her hair that has the most beautiful curls he'd ever seen. He thinks about the aesthetic her style gives off. He imagines her spinning in a field of flowers, smiling and laughing as she takes in the beautiful scenery. He imagines her eyes catching the sun's rays, how they'd shine and leave you staring at them for hours. She's beautiful. In a way, he's jealous of the way she's dressed. He can't even remember the last time he had worn a simple t-shirt out in public. He wishes he had it like that. Maybe he could. He thinks about what they could be, imagining what it must be like coming home to someone as beautiful as her. He would feel alive with her, spend the weekends going on adventures and hikes, or start a family where they'd be supportive of whatever their children wanted to become. He would no longer be working to bring more wealth to his family's name, no. He'd be working for her. As long as it was with her, anything would be possible. He'd always wanted to treat a girl right, and right there, staring back at him, was a girl that couldn't be ignored. All he had to do was say something, anything, let her know that he couldn't resist the temptations anymore. All he had to do was say something. Then, they pass. That moment in time that felt like forever had only lasted 2 seconds. Em is left in awe, as was Austin. They board their flights. The two would never see each other again. Em thinks about if she should have said something. She didn't have to go home. She had gladly stayed behind if he had asked her to stay. Austin kicks himself. A life of new opportunity was there for the taking, and he felt like he had just wasted it. These two people who didn't even know each other's names were on each other's minds. In time, they forget all about the person they fell for at the airport. Sometimes a stranger passing by in the streets reminds them of a certain someone they had saw, but neither of them can put a finger on it. Em marries a man who helps provide for the family they have created together, and Austin falls for a girl who loves the outdoors and has an appreciation for the arts. They both feel they have known their partners forever. Maybe, perhaps, they did. And while the airport lovers never ended up together, it's almost as if they changed each other that day without even realizing it. The point behind the airport lover concept is to acknowledge our impulse ideas as curious creatures, even though we know we can't act upon them. All you're left to wonder is what if? What if one of them were to have said something? What if they ran off together, started a new life? What if they had acted on their impulses? Of course, running away with a stranger breaks all societal norms, but sometimes this idea can be perceived as romantic to those who want to break free from a life of normality. Nonetheless, leaving the reader questioning what if is a mechanic that leaves you wanting to change the story, but alas aren't able to and have to settle with the fact that these two strangers never end up together. I write you this story to show you an example of what a concept like this can bring to the table. The airport lovers concept doesn't just have to center around being at an airport. You can place two people at any location you, the writer, want to, whether that be a beach, a busy sidewalk in the city, or even a supermarket. This concept has so many possibilities to expand upon, and I would love to see it done in a way that is unique and original. Stories of unrequited love can be beautiful and tragic, and I would love to see more books, movies, and TV shows tackle ideas like these. With all that being said, I appreciate your time, and I hope I can move you to go and create your own stories. You have an idea, go and tackle it head on. You can do so much more than you believe you can. All you have to do is believe in yourself and watch your ideas take off.